So anyway, it should be clear to people by now that tobacco companies do have a stake in all of this financially. They have product lines, they have entire smoke-free portfolios that should be promoted. And I'm sure to many people's dismay, CASA supports that. One of the things that we've been saying for many, many years is, if we are truly interested in quickly deploying a harm reduction strategy and having these products as accessible to as many people who smoke as possible, tobacco companies are in the best position to do that. There are a lot of things that they need to do. For example, when you walk into your convenience store and you see that what's called the power wall behind the cash register, and you'll see a row of, just Marlboros taking up 6 slots on that wall. Well, tobacco companies need to change that and have just one for Marlboro. How about we have most of the space occupied by smoke-free products? When I go down up the street to the gas station near me, about 1/3 of the display is for smokeless products. And I've seen, I think Zyn has kind of crept in where the cigarettes are. And these are things, that kind of marketing is what we want to see from tobacco companies. And they're in the best position to do it because they've got all the contracts with the real retailers. And so they can make their smoke-free portfolio more prominent to people who smoke. And so they are invested in this, and they should be supporting policies that keep these products accessible to consumers, people like you and me who used to smoke or don't want to smoke anymore. The only reason why tobacco companies can sell vapor products is because of the independent vaping industry / vaping community who built all of this. This should just be like, this is kind of one of those things that should be a disclosure at the top of any time we discuss like what tobacco companies' stake is in this industry. The reason they are able to have a stake in this is because all of us got together, fed up with nicotine replacement therapies, fed up with all the other therapies and treatments and 1-800-QUIT lines and all that stuff, and also not getting really the products and innovation that we as consumers want from tobacco companies. And so people said, we're just going to do this on our own. And all of this happened on ECF. It all happened on social media. It happened in people's homes. It happened in, tiny little conference centers, in crappy little hotels. People coming together for vape meets and sharing their recipes and having fun and quitting smoking. That's why all of this is here. And all of you out there who started all of this deserve all of the credit for any of the good that comes from this. And so it's as is typical, in the business world. It's usually the larger fish that come along, gobble up the technology, gobble up the innovation, and start making all of the profits. And in the case of tobacco, they're able to do that relatively easily. It's not easy, but it's relatively easy because of the Tobacco Control Act. So right off the bat, if we wanted a simple answer for who the biggest enemy of vaping and tobacco harm reduction is, it's Congress. It's Congress and campaigns. They're the ones that wrote the law. Tobacco companies at the time, of course, saw an opportunity to insulate themselves from competition. That's a business decision, but not really an enemy of the category. So if people think that tobacco companies are getting away with the same stuff they got away with in the 50s and 60s, it's completely wrong. We have a law about this.
Under a microscope.
There is a lot of enforced transparency here. And so it's important to think very critically about the messages we're getting from all of the public health campaigns. And these are the organizations that are putting up the most resistance to any form of harm reduction related to nicotine. So it was known that the continuum of risk was a real thing back in the 80s, but instead of promoting a harm reduction strategy, all of the campaigns, so we're talking American Lung Association, American Cancer Society, American Medical Association, American Heart Association, World Health Organization, American Academy of Pediatrics, all of these organizations decided to take more of a zero tolerance approach. And that's where we get the message that there is no safe tobacco product. Absolute safety is an impossible bar, and I don't think there is no product on the market that meets those criteria. And so it's straight up propaganda. And of course, the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and their mission, of course, is to lobby in favor of CDC best practices for implementing the Tobacco Control Act and improving public health or whatever. And then, of course, the next question is why? Why are they so against us? But they are against vaping because it's a tobacco product. It's nicotine. And so the idea for a lot of people that tobacco companies would profit in any way off of selling low risk products is absolutely abhorrent to them. And so they have chosen this path of pretty much zero tolerance, which part of it is a consequence of the law, and the other part of it is just a consequence of their very narrow-minded ideology. So to hopefully quickly answer this question, I'm going to refer everyone to a very long but worth the read article from Michelle Minton, who we've had on here, Fear Profiteers, How E-Cigarette Panic Benefits Health Advocates. So the beneficiaries of all of this anti-vaping propaganda and the people who are putting out the anti-vaping propaganda are all of the campaigns that we mentioned in the previous section. But that's really what this comes down to, is that you know, with the advent of vapor products and the larger discussion about reduced risk products, these groups are, I think, starting to feel their irrelevance, and so they've had to sort of trump up a new boogeyman, which is not, it's the same boogeyman, it's tobacco companies, but they've had to lie and twist the truth and make it sound like tobacco companies invented all of this stuff just to hook your kids. And everybody here listening, hopefully everybody, knows that that is not true. But it's not going to stop these campaigns from fundraising all of the sensational nonsense that they put out there. We've also seen examples of politicians being funded. I think one of the things that Michelle points out in her article here is that health officials in other countries have found themselves being completely paid for by Bloomberg money or other organizations' monies, you know, in pursuit of passing stricter laws on vaping or tobacco products. And this all basically smacks of corruption. But to simply answer the question here and move along, it is the self-appointed public health campaigns that benefit the most from this. Not your kids, not us. It's the campaigns. We've kind of answered the where do they get their funding, but there's some more background here. The Master Settlement Agreement provided some funding for the campaigns. It was supposed to go, you know, a bulk of those funds were supposed to go into tobacco prevention and education stuff. And I think Kristen has wrote some notes here. Out of the billions of dollars that has been collected through the Master Settlement Agreement and dispersed to states, 700 million. That's it. That's all that's been spent on tobacco control measures. So one of the things that I'm fond of including in some of our written testimony is if the state believes that these interventions are worthwhile, then they should be fully funded, which most states do not. So let's see, we had the $160 million that Bloomberg has put up over 3 years. We got over the 47 million that he spent in California. That's 47 million compared to 25 million by tobacco companies, which I think was largely Reynolds. Yeah, it's sort of, that's not the only money that he's contributed. He will fund some of the small local or state efforts out of his own pocket. But, you know, we also had Johnson & Johnson is in on this as well. So the funding is coming not just from, you know, tax revenue or government sources or, you know, grants, but it's coming from funding from a pharmaceutical giant and Michael Bloomberg, who it just apparently has an axe to grind with anything that isn't Snow White and pure.